She was just pouring coffee when the trucker began humming a lullaby. Soft, haunting, strangely familiar. Mary froze. That melody had not been heard in 22 years. Her missing brother used to sing it before he vanished without a trace. The man claimed he didn't know where he learned it, but Mary did. What began as an ordinary afternoon was about to uncover a truth buried deep in silence and grief. The diner bell rang with a gentle chime, like the start of a memory trying to push through the fog. Mary looked up from her faded ledger. Pen paused mid-stroke. The man who stepped inside wasn't familiar. Not to Pine Grove, and certainly not to her. Late 20s, tall, polite, a dusting of road fatigue clinging to his boots. He took off his cap, gave a quiet nod, and slid into the booth by the window. The one with the cracked vinyl seat no one liked but always returned to. Mary stepped out from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. "Coffee?" she asked. "Black, and if that's peach pie I smell, I'll take a slice." She smiled faintly, though her eyes didn't match it. Something in his tone felt steady, kind. She poured the coffee and turned to plate the pie. Crust golden sugar crackled just right. As she walked it over, she caught it. Soft under his breath. A hum. It was nothing at first, just background noise. But the melody, no, that was not coincidence. Her steps slowed. Her fingers curled tighter around the plate. He was humming it. Her mother's lullaby. The same one, only sung in their house. Never written down. Never recorded. A song born of grief and warmth. One her mother made up for Daniel, the little boy who vanished 22 years ago. Mary set the plate down, but her voice barely came out. "What song is that?" The man blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, just a tune. Something my dad used to hum, I think. Been stuck in my head forever. Don't even know where I picked it up." Mary's face did not move, but inside her everything cracked like old glass under pressure. "You remember your childhood?" He gave a lopsided shrug. "Bits. Not much before I was 5. Just flashes. Woke up in a shelter in Nevada one day. Foster homes after that. Name's Luke now. Been driving since 18. Mary gripped the edge of the table. It was impossible, but her pulse was thudding now, like boots pounding toward something she never let herself hope for. She turned away quickly and headed to the back office, hands trembling, to make the call she had not made in over a decade. Mary's fingers trembled as she unlocked the back office door. She could still hear the hum in her ears, distant but undeniable. Her heart had not stopped racing since she'd heard it. It was too exact, too personal. That song had no name, no sheet music, no public echo. Her mother wrote it during nights Daniel couldn't sleep. She used to say it was just for their home. A secret melody for the people I love. And now a stranger had brought it into her diner wrapped in memory. She sat down hard on the stool, grabbed her phone, and dialed her older sister, Elise. It rang once. "Mary, what's wrong?" Elise's voice was sharp. She never called during the day. Mary's words poured out in hushed gasps. "He's here, a man. He's humming Mom's lullaby, Elise." "Exactly. I didn't say a word. He just started humming it." Silence on the line. "Elise, I'm not imagining it." A soft exhale. "Then, do you still have the recording?" "The one Mom made the week before Daniel." She didn't finish the sentence. Mary nodded even though Elise couldn't see her. "It's on my phone. You sent it last year." "Play it for him," Elise said, her voice shaking now. "See how he reacts. If it's real, he'll know the words. He won't even realize it." Mary hesitated. "What if it's not him?" "Then it's a strange coincidence," Elise whispered. "But if it is, you'll know." Mary returned to the dining area. The trucker, Luke, was still seated, sipping his coffee, fork halfway into the pie. He looked up and smiled as she approached. She pulled out her phone, placed it gently on the table, and pressed play. The soft crackle filled the room. Her mother's voice sang through the air like a ghost slipping back into the world. The lullaby was slow, soothing, familiar as breath. Luke froze. He stared at the phone like it had reached into him and pulled something buried to the surface. His lips parted and then he sang along. Just one line, word for word. "That's the song," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I swear I've heard this in dreams." Mary sat down across from him, her chest heaving. "Your name isn't Luke," she said slowly. "It's Daniel, and you're my brother." Luke blinked. Once, twice. The words hung in the air between them like dust catching the afternoon light. He did not answer. Not right away. He looked down at the phone again as if trying to rewind time with his eyes. The melody had stopped playing, but the echo of it clung to the walls. "I don't understand," he said softly. "Daniel." Mary nodded, her breath unsteady. "You disappeared 22 years ago. You were 4. One day you were playing in the backyard. Mom went inside to get lemonade. When she came back, you were gone." His lips moved, barely audible. "Nevada shelter. I remember crying in a blue room. A woman with red hair gave me crackers." Mary leaned forward, eyes burning. "That's what the case file said. You were dropped off anonymously. No ID, no answers." Daniel pressed a hand to his forehead. "I thought I was crazy. I used to hear that lullaby in my sleep. I'd wake up crying and have no idea why." Mary pulled out a small silver locket from her apron. Inside was a tiny photograph, a grainy snapshot of her and Daniel sitting on the porch steps, popsicles in their hands. The boy had sandy brown hair, a crooked smile, and eyes just like his. She slid it across the table. Daniel stared at it for a long time. "That's me." "Yes." He looked up, tears falling freely now. "I always felt like something was missing, like there was a hole I couldn't fill." Mary didn't move. She just let the silence speak for her. The ache she had carried in her chest for more than 2 decades was still there. But now it pulsed with something else, possibility, hope. Daniel wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie, exhaling shakily. "Why didn't anyone ever find me?" Mary swallowed hard. "We tried. Elise spent years with investigators, but whoever took you, they covered their tracks. We thought maybe you were gone for good." Daniel shook his head, dazed. "I don't even know who I am." Mary reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You're home." The next few days moved like a dream suspended in slow motion. Daniel stayed in the small motel behind the diner, the same one Mary used to stare at every evening before locking up, wondering if anyone from her past would ever walk through her door. Now he had. Mary barely slept. Elise drove down the next morning, her hands shaking as she hugged the brother she had last seen as a toddler. He did not remember her face, but when she whispered the old nickname, Bean, the one only she had called him, Daniel's eyes filled all over again. They sent in the DNA samples that afternoon. The wait was agonizing. In the meantime, Mary pulled out the old family albums, the ones buried in the bottom of the pantry closet where she had once hidden her grief. Photos of birthdays, sunlit summers, a toddler with jam on his face, always chasing after butterflies. Daniel studied them like pieces of a puzzle he had never known he was part of. He remembered flashes. A porch swing, a woman singing, a voice yelling his name, then darkness, then waking up in a strange room with a blue ceiling. Mary and Elise filled in what they could. The woman who used to work for their family, her name was Carla. Quiet, soft-spoken. She had been dismissed suddenly after Mary's mom caught her screaming at Daniel. A week later, he vanished. Records showed Carla had died in a car accident years ago. No next of kin, no confession, no trail. She had changed his name, hid him in another state, dropped him at a shelter when she got sick, and never told a soul. There were no charges to file, no justice to serve, just a broken thread slowly mended by something far stronger than the years. Memory, music, and the ache of family unforgotten. On the 5th day, the results arrived. Mary did not need to open them. She already knew. But Daniel held the paper, his hands trembling. "Daniel Cole Evans," he whispered, reading the name aloud. "That's me." Mary stood behind him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. He turned, looking not like a lost man, but like a child who had finally made it home. They did not tell the internet. There were no hashtags, no headlines, no calls for morning shows. Mary kept the news close. Like a warm ember, she refused to let burn too bright. The world did not need to know. It would have cheapened it somehow. This was not a miracle for cameras. This was a moment earned through 2 decades of aching silence. Daniel moved into the small room above the diner. Mary cleared it out herself. It had been used for storage, but she kept one thing untouched, a tiny wooden train set their father had made by hand. Daniel picked it up the first night, turning it over in his fingers like something sacred. They talked late into the nights, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes sitting in silence as old wounds surfaced and healed. Customers never asked questions. They just noticed the new man behind the counter refilling coffee and fixing the old jukebox that hadn't worked in 10 years. Daniel never introduced himself, but he always smiled kindly, always said, "Welcome in." And every night after the closed sign flipped and the chairs were turned upside down, Mary made 2 plates, same as she had every night for 22 years. Only now there were 2 people at the booth. She would sit across from him, her brother, and hum that lullaby soft and steady. Daniel would close his eyes, lean back, and sometimes hum along. Sometimes he would cry, but always he would smile. Because even though they had lost everything once, time, memories, childhood, they had found something even more enduring, each other. And in the gentle clatter of forks on plates, in the creak of the booth, in the flicker of the open sign just before she turned it off, was peace. Not the loud kind. The kind that comes after years of waiting. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. Just 2 souls reunited at the edge of a quiet Texas town.